Paltrocast.
So, aside from the frantic week in doing press, is it a good week in the life of one Steve Schiltz?
Yeah, it's great. Thanks.
Yeah, so big week for you in that, hey, big, rare Longwave gig, but also the vinyl record, the 20th anniversary. So,
Yeah.
how long was it in the works for, 20 years? Ha ha ha. No, how long was it in the works for to
Oh,
get the
for the
vinyl happening?
yeah, it wasn't easy initially because it's owned by Sony. BMG was our label. It was RCA when the record came out, and
Yeah,
our old manager has a small record label now, and it was his idea to do it. And then I'm trying to think. We tried to do it last year. That last year was the 20th anniversary. 2003 was when the record came out,
hmm,
and um, it just took a while. I think also we wanted to do a show around it. We didn't want to just do the vinyl and be an online thing or a restores thing. We wanted to do a show or some shows about it.
right.
And that took a while to nail down everybody and get a date that people could work with because I'm the only one in New York anymore. So
Yeah, is it New York, Vietnam, San Francisco, and is there a fourth city or locale for Longwave?
yep. So it's yeah, Saigon is our bass player, Christian. Lagunitas, I think it's somewhere in Northern California for Shannon, our guitar player, and Jason, our drummer, lives in Newburgh, New York. So that's not too far away. It's like an hour, 2 hours, but yeah. So mostly because we have to fly two people in, it was hard to get a date sorted out, and then once that was done, everything else kind of started to happen. And there's a video too. I sent you the video, I think, right? That's the other
Yeah,
component of it.
I,
There's a
I
tidal
love
wave.
that video. And if I can give you
Thanks,
the
me
first
too.
of many compliments right here, The Strangest Things does not get old to me. It
Oh wow, yeah.
sounds, I'm not going to say, oh, it's timeless. No, I love the songs. I love the production. Dave Fridman knocked it out of the park. The songs from you and Shannon are great. But a lot of artists that I talk to, they don't love their first album. They listen back and they go, I would have done that differently and that differently. And when you tape a music video, you have to lip sync it hundreds of times and you
Yeah.
never want to hear it again. How do you feel about the record at this point?
Um, I've listened to it a bunch in the last week or two, and I had to listen to it obviously when we got it together last year, started getting it together last year for the vinyl. And uh it's not my favorite Longwave record, which is maybe funny to say. My favorites would be the Secrets Are Sinister and If We Ever Live Forever, which is the last two we did.
Mm-hmm.
But there are points in Strangest Things that I love. And when I hear it now, it just kind of sounds like youthful exuberance or something. And so I hear personally, I hear my inexperience as a singer. I hear some of the words I don't love, but I kind of have to give myself and the band at the time a break because the band that made that record was playing at the Luna Lounge.
Yes.
Like in New
The
York, the
back
Luna
room
Lounge.
of the Luna Lounge.
Yeah, the Luna Lounge was a tiny club that held, I think, 65 or 70 something people, and it was free to get in. I mean, we were like learning how to play. Shannon had never played guitar before. I had never sung in a band before. So, like the fact that the record exists the way it does, in a way, is kind of incredible. So, that's how I feel about it. I'm of two minds about it. I love to hear it now. You know, when we do the show on Saturday, it's going to be playing the record in full, and then when I've been running through stuff here, we're going to do some other songs after that. You know, I guess I'm probably a little more excited sometimes about those, but to sing Tidal Wave again, to sing Wake Me When It's Over, some of those songs, like when we've gotten together in the last couple of years to play, when Shannon starts playing Wake Me When It's Over, it's like I get super excited as well. So
Yeah.
um, I can see the strengths in the record, and I love the record. You know, my own hangups are my own hangups about it, probably.
Again, doesn't get old to me or Kristen Bell. We both
Yeah, she
love
apparently was a fan.
love the record there. And I say kudos to you. In accident with in terms of your singing on it is
Oh yeah,
it's not a lot of high notes. So a lot of artists 20 years later are tuning down the songs. They can't sing like they used to. But it seems like the easiest songs from your catalog to sing are the first long.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, my voice has actually gotten a little bit deeper in the last couple of years, but I can still sing all the long wave stuff as well as I ever could.
Yeah, again, people have to detune, and sometimes when you detune a song a couple of steps down, it doesn't sound like the same song. You
Right.
go,
Oh no, no, I know what you
oh,
mean.
that's the hit.
The long wave stuff, so in long wave for the whole life of the band, we would tune our guitars and bass down a half step anyway. And that was because I had been in a band back in my hometown in Rochester where we had done that to help the singer. And so when I started writing songs on my own, like in earnest, I just would keep my guitar in that. So maybe that helps a little bit. I don't know. But it's the only band now, the only musical situation I find myself in these days where I would tune down a half step. So when we play on Saturday, I'll have to tune the guitar down a half step to do the stuff.
That was actually something I wanted to know about. Now, I started tuning down a half step when I was in high school because I figured out Weezer did that. And then over
Yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah. Van
oh, Kiss
Halen, lots
does
of
that.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Van Halen. And for you, it was just the early band did it, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah. The first band I was in that was a serious band, like where we kind of toured a little and recorded seriously in a real studio. That band, the guy writing tuned his guitar down a whole it was a disaster. He turned the guitar down a whole step. The bass player was in E, like standard, with a five string, and then I
Uh,
was in E flat. And why I don't remember. It must have had something to do with the first batch of songs we had worked up or something. But usually when you're playing guitar with somebody else, if you're a guitar player, you understand. Like I'll look over at you and see maybe where your hand is to like maybe if we're learning a song or something. And with that situation, there was no prayer, because like
yeah.
he's in a whole different spot over there.
Yeah, you're looking at that kind of, you have to go that plus two, and that guy, you have to go
Yeah.
that plus
Yeah,
one.
yeah, 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 yeah.
There you go. So obviously, I'm very aware of your discography, and
More than me, maybe. I'm impressed.
you've never stopped. I think that's the kind of key here, that this Longwave show comes in the middle of a break from extensive touring with Blue
Yeah.
October and their scoring projects and commercial work, etc. The music never stops. So what I'm curious about here is, how do you stay so prolific? It's not just, well, I pick up a guitar, but a lot of artists I speak with, writing 12 songs every 2 years is a struggle.
Mm.
In your case, it seems like it's 12 songs at least a month.
I don't know about that. I think, well, thanks for that compliment. I think for me, it's a lot of working with people like the Blue October guys. They just like to work, and I'm not doing all of the heavy lifting. And with the commercials, that kind of stuff, it's, someone is asking me, I'm getting some sort of input in all of the things that you're mentioning. It's not like I'm, dreaming it up from the ground up. So,
Hmm,
it's easier in a way. And at this point now, it's also just efficient and more enjoyable to be doing things with people who like to work like I like to work. Um, it- that's killed a lot of things in the past for me where I start talking to somebody about working up something or other, and then it just kind of dies. Like I might start something and then it's not reciprocated or whatever it is, and those projects never last very long. So
hmm.
for these days, it's more about, if I get a new song from Justin from Blue October to work on, he might say, I need a verse here, or, and I'll say, right, like I'm on it. It's easy, in a way, not easy, but it's now I have a framework, and I have a very defined mission. Whereas, yeah, I think if you left me alone and said, make anything you want, it might be harder to do that.
Got it. So to rudely interrupt you, it sounds like a deadline and or a collaboration and or some framework, and the creativity comes to you easy. But if somebody goes, "Hey, write another long wave album," that's torture.
Not torture, but yeah, I would at that point you have to impose some sort of framework on it yourself, or else it won't get done. If I if I were to say, I mean, there are folders of unfinished songs that I have, and that's exactly the story with them. You know, nobody has, I have not put them into any kind of framework where I would have uh, a way, you know, like a motivation to finish by a certain date or whatever it is, like you just said. Like, so those things kind of just hang out over here. And then at some point, Blue October needs something, Longway needs something, then I'll go plunder the folder, you know, and then impose its framework on it, you know. It's just a way to get things done. You know, I think people who don't um maybe who don't write music all the time, or it
Hmm.
does seem like maybe I'm, you know, the person who does is walking around like out of their head on creativity or something, but it really has to have a framework and a like a deadline helps, like just something, because I do come here every day and I work on something, and those are the things that get finished.
Right. Now, that is an intriguing point for me as well, where when you start off as a musician, you're a lot younger. I presume you're nocturnal, that it's a lot of rehearsing at night, writing at night, tracking at night. And now, as a family man, you treat
Yeah.
it like a day job. So, when
Yeah.
did you notice that flip that you could write and create in the daytime and be less vampire-y?
I still wish I would be able to have, but you're like you said, I have kids, and it's not the same way. And at some point, it's just I don't know. I enjoy coming here, working. I enjoy leaving at the end of the day. So and in between, I enjoy working. I don't know. When it flipped like that, when I think the part of the reason it had to be nocturnal before is because I had a day job. So that was the only time I had, and I loved staying up late and getting lost like in your head, like into the fog, you know, and I miss that for sure. I'm not sure it's the same sort of output now as it would have been back then, but on the other hand, it's nice to be clear in the morning and like be sharp and really get things done too. So they both have their advantages.
Have you noticed that same thing, putting you on the spot here, with a lot of your other friends you came up with on the Lower East Side, Brooklyn scene of the early 2000s? The
Yeah.
other people who got signed and toured the world, that they became family people and they no longer were these nocturnal beings?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody, nah, I'm trying to think. I'm running through friends like you're mentioning in my head. Uh,
Because a compliment on the record is everyone likes to really love Steve. It's a range,
oh
but you're not
gosh.
one of the people that doesn't collaborate or work well with others. So I figure when I say friends, you actually have those things. Not everybody has friends in the music business. Some
Oh
people want to be
yeah.
on that own island, and then other people they go, "Hey, here's a guitar. You want to come up stage on stage? Yeah, sure."
Oh
Hear that?
yeah. No. I feel like I'm really fortunate. I have Longwave are still my best friends. Blue October I've been great friends with for 15 years at this point. There's a band called Wah together that isn't playing a whole lot right now, but it's me and two other dads and like rock dads and a singer named Jaiko. But all those things, it's you're working during the daytime and you do it like your job. I mean, I think that's the only way to sustainably have it be your job. You know, I think I would love to in some ways like be working all through the night, but I think that would take a huge toll on everything else in my life. So I'm not willing to make that sacrifice right now. My kids are young. I like taking them to school. You know, it's good.
So the follow-up question before I ask the polite closing-ish question
Oh,
is, when you started off, I'm sure is let's try out every guitar pedal and setting and every amp tone and all that. And now it
yeah, I
sounds
still
like
do that.
oh, you still do
No,
that in the
I don't
day.
know. Sometimes, yeah.
I thought it was more going to be, well, if you can't get it right on the third try, let's abandon. It's more of a concise approach.
Oh, it's different. That's funny that you say it, just like the way you said that, because that's a David Lee Roth quote. Uh, I believe I'm getting it right, where he says, "If you can't do it in two tries, you can't do it," or like if you can't do it in three tries. I think that's what you can't
Which
do it.
I don't agree with. I mean, it's
Oh,
funny.
I understand what he's saying, and I kind of agree with it. I mean, um, you know, if you're talking about guitars and trying things, and sometimes for sure, like if I'm on a mission to finish something and I plug in something and it's not doing it, I'm not going to spend more than a second on it. I have enough, luckily enough pedals or whatever it is, gear, guitars, whatever it is, that I'll just try another one that perhaps will, because it's just, you're on a mission. You got the Otherwise you get thrown off course.
Sure.
But if the mission is to find something new or exciting and there is no like, if that is the mission, then yeah, plug everything in. Have a good old time.
I was just thinking before I really do go to that last question is around the same time that you were signed to RCA. I never talked to you about this, but the band Cave In was also
Yeah.
signed around the same time. And I remember their press release or the bio that I got as a writer said something along the lines of, we're used to doing our albums in 3 weeks, and we spent 2 weeks just on figuring out amp sounds.
Yeah, that doesn't usually go turn out very well in my my experience.
That's
Could
where
be
my
the
mind was going, RCA bands that survived.
Yeah,
But
yeah. No, we did one record a little bit like that, but generally we try to go fast and be ready, or and just keep going. But um it's funny you say that. I did a tour once with Albert Hammond Jr. from the Strokes,
Mhm.
and this isn't, I know this is obnoxious sounding, but we opened for Coldplay, right?
Yeah.
So we did 6 weeks in Europe opening for them. And there was one night in Paris, we had two shows in Paris, and those Coldplay guys would always fly home after the shows, but that time they stayed. And we went out drinking, and I got to talk to the guitar player. And um, Brian Eno had just done a record of theirs called Viva La Vida, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, tell me everything about Brian Eno. And basically, they said that they had an engineer and they would set up and they started getting the snare drum sound and they were sitting there working on it, getting the tuning. And eventually, they expect Brian Eno to show up with like a cartage full of old Yamaha DX7 synths and all the stuff he would have used in the 80s. Apparently, he showed up with like one Eventide processor and like a thumb drive with a bunch of I don't know, like presets or something for it. And that was it. And they were like, "Well, aren't you gonna bring your stuff?" And he's like, "This is what I do." And he walked in, and he's like basically immediately shut down this getting a drum sound thing and just like, let's go.
Let's
I
get
was
the
like,
performance and then we'll fix the sounds.
yeah, just not get thrown off course, like not just get like then you're like it's if that energy is going toward, which of the 15 snare drums we're going to use, that's like immediately less brain power for like does it need the second verse being shorter, which is ultimately such a more important decision to be made.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I don't know if that's the long way of going around what you said about the cave in using all the amps. I think in my experience trying to stay on target is that's a skill, and it's good to try and keep it in mind.
To sidebar on the sidebar, one of my first like interviews when I was a teenager was with the guitarist of Bad Religion, and they
Yeah,
just done
yeah.
an album with Todd Rundgren. And I asked what it was like, and he said, they made it in Hawaii where Todd was doing all of his albums, and they carted all of their amps and gear over,
Oh
and they just showed
God.
up at Todd's place, and he's like, "Okay, here's your guitar amp." It was a thing about yay big, and like,
Hmm.
what do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, all the sounds you need are on this thing.
Yeah.
You didn't need to cart all your gear over. So I guess legends learn to be concise. You're a concise guy, called you a
Oh,
legend. And the last question, kind of a softball, is what's next? Because we know that there's this vinyl release, there's the gig at the Bowery Ballroom, but tour dates after that with Blue October, writing stuff, what can we know?
for Longwave or for me in
For
particular?
Steve
Oh
Schiltz.
yeah, yeah. I don't know how much more Longwave stuff we'll do right away because everyone lives in different places. But for Blue October, for sure, there's a spring tour. It's a good length again. It's like 7 weeks or something. And then
Hmm.
there's a new Blue October record that is, percolating, percolating. And So that'll be what happens for a lot of this year when there's breaks in between Blue October tours. The Blue October tours a lot. There's always a spring tour and there's always a fall tour. So for me, it's definitely adjusting to that again. I love being on tour with them right now. We've just done the whole fall of this last year, and I just loved playing every night. I loved playing on that level where things are well oiled and running really smoothly. So I love it. So that's the main thing happening right now, I suppose. There's still some TV commercial work happening, but I've been very transparent with the people that I work with and that stuff, and I'm kind of not able to do it when I'm out on tour. And without exception, every one of them has been like, good for you. Which is so cool, like it's so like so I feel I guess fortunate like that. You asked about having friends in music. I suppose at this point, like it's that's what it is. It's just and I consider myself trying to be a friend to these people too.
So projecting and putting on the spot here, it sounds like your early 20s were fantastic in getting a record deal pretty quickly and touring the world for a couple of years. Then things imploded for a bit.
Yeah.
Made it work, but it imploded. And then things got good again in the late 30s, early 40s. And then here you are getting to celebrate
I don't
the
know
stuff you did when you were young and push
I
the
don't know
ball
when the
forward.
Twilight thing happened. That was an important thing if you're talking about the timeline. That was what was 2009. I was 30, 31. So yeah, that was important what you just said because that broke up everything you just said because from that point on I had a studio and that's been the case ever since.
So the early parts of every decade of your life are good.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it goes to crap, and then it rebuilds again in the next early
Oh
decade.
God. Yeah, maybe you're right.